My name's Kimberly, just your average IT nerd with a knack for keeping things locked down, cyber-wise, that is. Since the pandemic took my folks, it's just been me, alone with their stuff and this valuable painting they left me. That thing's old, like handed down from my great-great-grandma old, signed by some big-shot English artist. Not that I'm selling, it looks too good in my living room. Work's been my life, literally steps from my apartment, and when I'm not there, you'll find me buried in my studies or firing up content for my YouTube channel. That's where the shy, awkward Kimberly becomes Cyber Kim, the guru of data protection. My videos are straightforward, nothing fancy, but they do the trick. I keep my friend circle tight. There's Sarah, a classmate from way back, and her husband, Mike, who's a lawyer. We'd catch up over cheesy slices or stuff ourselves with pasta at some Italian joint downtown, talking about everything and nothing. They're cool, the kind of friends who don't mind my tech rambles. So, this one day, I'm checking my channel comments, and there's a message from this guy, Tom. Not your typical nice vid stuff, he actually asked smart questions about firewall vulnerabilities. We ended up DMing, and let me tell you, the guy knew his bytes and bits. He was like, "Hey, I'm Tom. Caught your latest video. Could use a bit of advice on setting up a secure home network. Got a minute?" I replied, "Sure thing, shoot. Just promise you're not trying to hack your neighbor's Wi-Fi." We clicked right away. Chatting with Tom was easy. It felt like geeking out with a buddy, which, for me, was a big deal. Most guys don't get past my firewall, if you know what I mean. After a week of back-and-forth messages, he dropped, "You know, we should meet up. Could use a personal consult, and maybe coffee?" I typed back, "Coffee sounds good. There's this quiet place near my work. Friday?" Friday it is. See you there, Kim. Meeting Tom felt like a big step. I mean, here I was, a girl who'd rather spend her Friday nights updating software, stepping out to meet some guy from the internet. But, something about him seemed legit. The day came and there I was, early at the cafe, fidgeting with my phone, scrolling through code updates to calm my nerves. Tom walked in, casual, with a smile that knocked me a bit off my protocol. "Kimberly? Hi, I'm Tom. Thanks for coming out." I stood up, shaking his hand. "Hi, Tom. Hope this place is geek-friendly." We dove deep into tech talk, but it wasn't just that. Tom was funny in a witty, not over-the-top kind of way. He made tech talk feel like a cool hangout, not just a Q&A session. As we wrapped up, Tom said, "This was great. We should do it again, maybe make it a regular thing?" I nodded. "I'd like that. And maybe next time, I can save your phone from more than just theoretical threats." Walking back to my apartment, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe it was okay to let someone in, even just a bit. After all, even a cybersecurity expert needs a break from the screen sometimes. It was a sunny Saturday when Tom suggested we go meet his mom. He'd been talking about it for a while, like it was some big deal. "It's just lunch, Kim. But, you know, she's kinda old school, likes to know who's who in my life." I agreed, not because I was dying to meet his mom, but I figured if things were getting serious with us, I might as well get it over with. We drove out to a quiet suburb, houses all neat in a row, gardens manicured. Tom's childhood home looked just like him, orderly and tidy. His mom, Linda, was waiting at the door as we pulled up. She was all smiles, but her eyes did that up-down scan like a security system sizing me up. "Tommy, and you must be Kimberly. I've heard so much about you," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a frisk. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Anderson," I managed, stepping into the house that smelled of roast and something sweet baking. Lunch was on the table, everything laid out like a photo shoot for a family magazine. We sat down, and the interrogation began. Linda served the roast and fired off her first question with the same motion. "So, Kimberly, Tom tells me you work in computers? That tech stuff?" "IT specialist," I corrected, passing the potatoes. "I work on cybersecurity." "Oh, fancy," she said, almost sarcastically. "That make good money?" I choked on my water a bit. Tom jumped in. Mom, come on. Let's not get into all that. Linda waved him off. I'm just making conversation. So, Kimberly, do you own your place then? Must be nice, being independent. I nodded, unsure how much to reveal. Yes, I have my own apartment. Bought it all by yourself? No help from anyone? Her tone was curious, like she was digging for gold in my past. Just me, I said, feeling a bit cornered. Tom kicked me lightly under the table, giving me a just-go-with-it look. The meal dragged on, Linda's questions bouncing from my family background to my long-term career plans. I tried to steer the talk away from the interrogation vibe, but Linda had a talent for circling back. Finally, dessert was served, and I thought I'd use the chance to flip the script. Mrs. Anderson, Tom speaks so highly of you. Must have been a great mom to raise such a gentleman. Linda softened a bit. Well, I did my best. Tommy was always a good boy. Not much trouble, right, Tom? Tom smiled. Never, Mom. Kimberly's been great, too. She's really smart, knows her stuff. You should see her channel on YouTube, she's got quite the following. Oh, a YouTuber too? Linda's eyebrows went up. That's secure, is it? I smiled back, trying not to show my annoyance. Linda's obsession with money was somewhat tiresome. A year flew by faster than I'd ever imagined, and there I was, Kimberly Anderson, married and trying to adapt to a whole new chapter. Tom and I tied the knot in a simple ceremony, just close friends and family, and soon after, we settled into my apartment. Life as a married woman was supposed to be sweet, right? Well, it would have been, if only his mom, Linda, hadn't taken an overzealous interest in our lives, especially the financial part. It started with innocent visits. Linda would pop over, supposedly to see how we were settling in. But soon, these visits turned into full-on inspections. I'd find her eyes trailing after the new blender or the TV, and later, she'd casually mention how much those items cost online. Really getting your money's worth with that blender, huh, she'd say, scrolling through her phone to show me the exact price. But it wasn't just the comments. The frequency of her visits increased, turning our home into her daytime retreat. Initially, it was just coffee, but soon she was around so much that I barely had any downtime in my own space. One day, I tried to hint at the issue gently. Linda, don't you think it's great to have some alone time at home? I read this article about how solitude can be really refreshing. She just smiled, missing the hint entirely, or choosing to. Oh, I get plenty of alone time at my place, dear. That's why I come here, for a change of scenery and some company. Frustrated, I started scheduling errands or visits to Sarah's whenever Linda was over. But Linda, ever the persistent one, caught on and followed me one day. Kimberly, why don't we grab a bite at that new cafe downtown? My treat, she suggested one afternoon as I was almost out the door. Reluctantly, I agreed, thinking maybe public setting, different conversation. We settled into the cafe, and Linda ordered lavishly, appetizers, main courses, even dessert. After the meal, she patted her purse, then looked up with feigned shock. Oh dear, I've left my wallet at home. Can you believe it? There was a familiar twist in my gut as I reached for my purse and paid the bill, trying to keep my face neutral to avoid a scene. But the frustration was building. Once we got back to the apartment, I couldn't hold back anymore. Linda, I think we need to set some boundaries. You can't just show up and treat this place like your own. She looked taken aback, her face dropping into a mask of offense. I'm just trying to spend time with my son and you, Kimberly. I didn't realize my company was such an inconvenience. Before I could reply, Tom walked in, catching the tail end of our conversation. Kimberly, what's going on here? Why are you speaking to my mom like that? I turned to him, the day's frustrations boiling over. Tom, we need to talk about boundaries. Your mom can't just. But he cut me off, his tone firm yet annoyed. Mom means well, Kimberly. You're overreacting. Just try to be more welcoming, okay? Linda left soon after, her exit swift and silent, but the air remained thick with tension. For a few weeks after our last unpleasant exchange, Linda stayed away from our apartment. I was actually starting to relax again, enjoying the peace. Then one day, as I was dusting, I noticed something off about the painting my parents left me, the one that meant so much because of its history and sentimental value. It was hanging crookedly, which was odd because I always made sure it was perfect. Frowning, I straightened it and then stepped back. Something didn't feel right. That's when I decided to ask Tom about it. "Hey, did you move the painting?" I asked casually during dinner. Tom didn't look up from his plate. "Oh, yeah. Mom took it to get it checked out. She wanted to know how much it's worth." I stopped mid-bite, my fork hanging in the air. "She what? Why would she do that without asking us?" Tom shrugged, still not meeting my eye. "Mom's just curious, you know? You're always overreacting about this stuff." Deciding to confront Linda directly, I grabbed my phone and dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring, as if she'd been expecting my call. "Kimberly, dear. Good news about that painting. It's worth $500,000. We should really think about selling it." Her words made my head spin. "Linda, first off, it's not we. And you had no right to take my painting and have it appraised. It's not yours to sell." Linda's voice turned cold. "You're being unreasonable, Kimberly." And with that, she hung up on me. The next day, I came home from work earlier than usual, needing to clear my head after the bizarre conversation. As I unlocked the door, I could hear voices inside. When I stepped in, Linda and Tom abruptly stopped talking. Linda glanced at Tom, then at me, and hurried out with barely a goodbye. "What was that about?" I asked Tom as I hung up my coat. "Nothing important," he muttered, but his voice was too casual. The weirdness of it all made me uneasy. I walked into my office and noticed right away that things weren't as I'd left them. My computer was shifted, and papers were out of place. My heart raced. This wasn't just a simple visit, something else was going on. That night, after Tom went to sleep, I went online and ordered a video camera with a sound recording function. I didn't tell Tom. The next day, I installed it in my office, making sure it was hidden from view. I also moved the painting from the living room to my study, hoping it would be safer there. With the camera set up, I threw myself into a new project at work to keep my mind occupied. The thought of Linda and Tom scheming had me on edge, but I needed to focus on something positive. My work was something I could control, unlike the chaos that seemed to be taking over my personal life. It was an ordinary Tuesday, or so I thought when I left work early feeling under the weather. Opening the door, I found Linda and Tom lounging in the living room, both as casual as could be. The sight stopped me dead in my tracks. "Tom, why aren't you at work?" He looked up, unfazed, and shrugged. "Quit my job. You earn enough for both of us, don't you?" Linda nodded in agreement, her smile tight. "Exactly, Kimberly. Why stress him out with a job when you do so well for yourself?" My mouth fell open. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just a visit, it was a revelation of their true colors. "Are you kidding me? You quit your job without discussing it with me, and you, Linda, what part do you even play in this?" Tom stood up, his demeanor chillingly calm. "Look, Kim, let's not make this ugly. You have the money. I need support now." The room spun a little as their words sank in. "Support? You mean you want me to fund your laziness? Both of you just sitting around planning how to milk me for everything I'm worth?" Linda's eyes narrowed, and she crossed her arms. "Watch your tone, Kimberly. We're family." That was the last straw. "Family? No, this is not what family does. I want a divorce, Tom." The smile that crept onto Tom's face was one I didn't recognize. It was cold, almost pleased. "Fine by me. And I'll be asking for alimony, seeing as I'm jobless now." The audacity of his threat stunned me. I felt a mix of rage and disbelief churn in my stomach. Without another word, he grabbed a duffel bag from behind the couch, clearly pre-packed, and strolled out the door. Linda threw me a look that could curdle milk and hissed, "See you in court, Kimberly," before following him out. Once they left, the silence in the apartment was deafening. It was like waking up from a nightmare, except the monsters were real, and I had invited them into my life. I called Sarah, my voice shaking as I recounted what had just happened. She was furious on my behalf. "Kim, this is insane. You need protection, legal protection. Mike can help." I headed to Sarah and Mike's place. Mike was ready with both sympathy and lawyer mode activated. "Kimberly, we're going to take care of this. First thing, we'll file for divorce, and don't worry about the alimony threats. We'll counter every move they make. Tom quitting his job like that, it's manipulative, and we'll prove it." After talking things through, I returned to my apartment, feeling more determined. I was about to divorce the man I thought I knew, and battle his and his mother's greed. It was daunting, but necessary. I couldn't let them destroy what I'd worked so hard to build. The morning of the first court session for our divorce felt like gearing up for battle. I wore my most professional outfit, trying to project confidence despite feeling anything but. My stomach was in knots as I walked into the courtroom with Mike, my lawyer and friend, at my side. I had prepped myself for a tough day, but nothing could have readied me for the theater that unfolded. As soon as Tom walked into the courtroom, he transformed into someone I barely recognized. His suit was a bit too big, his hair unusually disheveled, and his eyes downcast. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, the perfect picture of misery and misfortune. His mother, Linda, clung to his arm, her face etched with concern, playing her part flawlessly. The proceedings began, and Tom's lawyer wasted no time painting him as the ultimate victim. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client has been left to fend for himself after his wife, the sole breadwinner, abruptly ended their marriage when he needed her most. After losing his job, Mr. Anderson was not only abandoned emotionally but is now facing financial ruin." Tom took the stand, his voice shaky. "I did everything at home, Your Honor. Cooked, cleaned. I supported Kimberly in every way, hoping to ease her burdens. And when I lost my job, she turned her back on me." Linda testified next, her performance Oscar-worthy. "My son's life with Kimberly was a nightmare. She controlled everything, including the finances. When he lost his job, instead of support, what did he get? Abandonment. Kimberly is not the person she appears to be." The hypocrisy was staggering. I felt a cold anger settle in as I listened to their twisted version of our life together. When it was finally Mike's turn to cross-examine, he did his best to dismantle their stories. "Isn't it true, Mr. Anderson, that you quit your job voluntarily and without discussing it with my client?" Tom stuttered, faltering under Mike's steady gaze. "Well, it was a mutual decision, really." Despite Mike's efforts, I could tell the judge was moved by Tom's emotional display. The sympathy in his eyes as he nodded at Tom spoke volumes. As we filed out of the courtroom, Linda couldn't resist a parting shot. She sidled up to me, a triumphant smirk curling her lips. "You might think you're smart, Kimberly, but you'll see. You're going to lose. And when you do, I'll take every last cent from you." As soon as I got home, the silence of my apartment was suffocating, and the reality of potentially losing in court weighed heavily on me. I needed support, a game plan, and maybe a slice or two of pizza to lighten the mood. I picked up my phone and dialed Sarah's number. "Hey, can you and Mike swing by tonight? I think it's time we craft a real strategy over some pizza." They arrived with boxes of steaming pizza and a determination in their eyes that matched my own resolve. We set up camp in my living room, the coffee table now an impromptu war room scattered with legal pads, pens, and now, dinner. "We need a breakthrough, something concrete to turn the tables," Mike said, opening a box and handing me a slice of pepperoni. I nodded, taking a bite and trying to gather my thoughts. "I know, but everything up to now just seems circumstantial. They're playing the victim too well." Sarah poured us all coffees, her brow furrowed in thought. "We just need to catch them in a lie, something undeniable. As we ate, the conversation continued to circle around potential strategies and legal angles. But it was when we were winding down, our plates cleared and the second round of coffee in hand, that a seemingly innocent observation changed everything. "Kimberly, didn't your painting used to look different?" Sarah asked, nodding towards the large canvas in my living room. I turned to look, my heart skipping a beat. The colors did seem brighter, more vivid than I remembered. A sudden thought struck me, and I jumped up. The camera. I set up a camera in my office a while back. I completely forgot about it with everything going on. We rushed to my office, where I fired up my computer and began pulling up the footage from the hidden camera. The files loaded, and we watched intently as the days clicked by in fast forward. Then, there it was. The day Tom and Linda had been alone in my apartment. The video showed them entering the room, glancing around nervously before approaching the painting. Their voices were low, but picked up clearly by the camera's mic. "Make sure you swap it out smoothly. No one will ever know. Once we sell the real one, that's $500,000 we're sitting on." Tom's voice was a whisper, but the greed in it was loud and clear. Linda's laughter was chilling. "And once she's out of the picture with the divorce, we'll live like royalty. No more hiding, no more scrimping. Just wait, that alimony will be the cherry on top." My hands were shaking as I paused the video. We looked at each other, the gravity of the situation sinking in. This wasn't just petty theft, it was a calculated betrayal. "We've got them, Kim. This is it. This video could discredit them completely in court," Mike said, his voice steady and confident. The rest of the evening was spent in a flurry of planning. Mike outlined our next steps, detailing how we would introduce the video evidence in court, ensuring its impact would be undeniable. Sarah helped me draft a statement, her words crafting a clear, concise narrative of betrayal and deceit. The morning of the final court session was unlike any other. As we entered the courtroom, I caught sight of Tom and Linda, smug expressions planted firmly on their faces. They had no idea what was coming. The court settled, and the judge called the session to order. Mike was the first to speak, his voice filling the room. "Your Honor, we request permission to submit new evidence crucial to this case." The judge eyed him curiously. "And what might this evidence be?" "A video with audio, Your Honor, revealing the true intentions behind Mr. Anderson and his mother's actions." Permission was granted with a nod, and the courtroom hushed as Mike connected the USB drive to the court's AV system. I watched Tom and Linda, their confidence faltering as the screen flickered to life. The video played, their voices echoing through the courtroom. Tom's scheming words and Linda's greedy laughter filled the air, the shock and murmuring of the audience growing with each passing second. As the recording ended, the judge looked sternly at Tom and Linda, who had turned pale, their eyes wide with fear. The judge banged his gavel, his voice booming. "Based on this undeniable evidence, I declare the marriage between Kimberly and Tom Anderson dissolved. Mr. Anderson's claim for alimony is hereby rejected." He wasn't finished. Turning to his assistant, he barked, "Call the police. We have theft and conspiracy to commit fraud." The courtroom erupted into whispers and gasps as officers entered and approached Tom and Linda. Linda's composure broke, tears streaming down her face as she was handcuffed. "I'm sorry, Kimberly. I had debts. I didn't mean." "Save it, Linda. You did mean to," I cut her off, turning away as the police led them out of the courtroom. The painting was returned to me a few days later. Life slowly returned to normal. I poured my energy into my work and my YouTube channel, helping people protect themselves from the very deceit I'd experienced. 2 years passed. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Tom, his voice hesitant. "Kimberly, I'm out now. We're living in a rented place." I was hoping maybe we could try again. I'd changed, really. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound bitter yet liberating. "Tom, you never change. You're just out of options. Goodbye." Hanging up, I felt a final piece of the past slip away. I was free, truly free, and as I sat back at my desk, planning my next video, I knew that no matter what came my way, I was ready.